Welcome to The Explainer. So, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the stories you see in sports. We're diving deep into that invisible playbook that turns athletes and games into the legends we all remember.
You know the classic roles, right? The clutch hero, the relentless villain, the scrappy underdog. We recognize them instantly. But are these characters really born just from their stats and on-field plays? Or is there maybe a powerful, unseen hand guiding our cheers and boos from somewhere like the broadcast booth?
Okay, so to really get how this all works, you've got to understand one key thing. Media outlets aren't just reporters. In many ways, they're the architects of the whole story. And look, this power, it didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's evolved like crazy over the years. Way back, newspapers created local heroes with really descriptive writing. Then, radio brought that drama right into our homes, making us imagine the action. Television? Well, that changed everything. It gave us iconic images and created these global myths. And today, the digital era has just thrown gasoline on the fire, with countless narratives swirling all over social media.
So what's actually in this toolkit? How do they build these massive stories that we all get so invested in? Well, it basically boils down to 3 core communication theories that are pretty much always at play.
First up, you've got something called agenda setting. This is all about the power of selection. The media decides which games get the primetime slot, which players get the big pregame features, which storylines matter. They're not telling you what to think, but they are absolutely telling you what to think about.
All right, next up is framing. So once the media has set the agenda, they frame the story. This is all about the angle, the perspective. Is that player's comeback a story of heroic perseverance, or is it a desperate last chance? The words they use, the camera angles, the tone, it all works together to tell us how to feel about what we're seeing. And finally, there's cultivation theory, which explains the long-term effect. This is the slow burn, right? After a while, hearing these carefully framed stories over and over again starts to shape our actual perception of reality. If a player is constantly shown as arrogant, well, we start to believe that's just who they are. Repetition turns a media story into what feels like the objective truth. So yeah, it's this powerful 1, 2, 3 punch. You select the story, you frame the angle, and then you just repeat it until it becomes the accepted truth. This playbook is always at work, shaping how we see every game.
Okay, so let's get out of the theory and into the real world. How do they actually do this? What are the specific tools they use to build these legends every single time we tune in?
The broadcast itself is where it all happens. A commentator's choice of words can turn a pretty good play into a legendary moment. That epic slow-motion replay, it makes a split second seem timeless. And a simple camera close-up on a determined face, that's character building, right there in real time. They're not just showing you the game, they are directing your entire experience of it.
And here's a perfect example of framing in action. Take one single defensive play. It can be sold to us as a heroic, game-saving stop that came from pure will. Or that exact same play can be framed as a lucky, desperate deflection from a player who was totally caught out of position. Same event, 2 completely different stories. And what all this constant framing does over time is pretty powerful. It simplifies these complex, real people into characters that are super easy to digest. Archetypes. You got the hero, the villain, the underdog, the prodigy. It makes the story simple, clear, and really easy to get invested in.
Okay, now for the fun part. Let's look at some real-world case studies of this playbook being used to craft the legacies of some of the most famous icons in sports history.
First, let's talk about the ultimate underdog story, Leicester City winning the Premier League. I mean, this was the classic fairy tale narrative. A small, overlooked club taking on the giants. And that story was amplified by media outlets all across the globe. The media grabbed onto one thing and never let go. Their insane betting odds at the start of the season. 5,000 to 1. By setting the agenda around this single number, they perfectly framed the entire journey. It wasn't just a great season anymore. It was a legitimate miracle, a once-in-a-lifetime event. All right, next up, a true cultural icon, Muhammad Ali. His journey from this brash young fighter to a global figure of social change was meticulously documented, interpreted, and ultimately shaped by the media that was covering him. Now, Ali himself was a master of the media. He basically handed them headlines on a silver platter. His famous quotes became these perfect sound bites for his persona. Phrases like, "I am the greatest," were repeated constantly, helping the media craft a perfect story of a revolutionary,
defiant, and truly transcendent hero.
And this whole narrative thing is not just about individual players. It can build entire rivalries. And maybe no rivalry is more heavily shaped by media storytelling than El Clásico, that huge clash between Real Madrid and Barcelona.
The media frames this as so much more than just a soccer match. It's presented as this huge clash of identities. You've got Real Madrid with its story of royalty and prestige versus Barcelona with its Catalan identity and artistry. This narrative turns every single game into a deeply symbolic historical event.
And of course, we have to talk about the ultimate competitor, Michael Jordan. Now, his genius on the court was undeniable. Nobody's arguing that. But it was the media-crafted persona of Michael Jordan that became the global benchmark for greatness. Everything you saw, everything you read, it was all laser-focused on his killer instinct, his perfectionism, his almost supernatural ability to deliver in the clutch. This created a myth of invincibility, a story so powerful that through sheer cultivation, it still defines his legacy and the very idea of what a winner is to this day.
So after all of that, what's the big takeaway here? What does this actually mean for you when you sit down to watch a game?
Look, if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. The media isn't just reporting the game, it is actively writing the story of the game. And you know what? Recognizing this invisible playbook doesn't take away the magic of sports. Not at all. In fact, it adds a whole new layer, making you a smarter, more informed fan.
This knowledge is a tool. It gives you the power to see beyond the surface narrative. So next time you're watching, just listen closely to the commentary, pay attention to the camera work, and ask yourself that one simple question: what story am I being told right now? You'll start to see the game behind the game.